I remember this small epiphany I had when President Clinton and Elie Wiesel were dedicating the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum, and Elie Wiesel turned to Clinton in the middle of his speech.
And Mr. President, I cannot not tell you something. I have been in the former Yugoslavia last fall. I cannot sleep since of what I have seen. Something, as a Jew I am saying that, we must do something to stop the bloodshed in that country.
And the camera then panned to President Clinton, who clenched his jaw, whose eyes glistened. And then I heard these terrible words. He did not say them, but I heard them. He said, "But Elie, I am doing something about the genocide in Bosnia-Herzegovina. I'm here with you, remembering the Holocaust." And there's a suspicion that all this memory work is actually a substitute for acting.
In the debate on Bosnia, there were seriously conversations. Is what's going on truly Holocaustal or merely genocidal? Is it truly genocidal or merely atrocious? Which is a truly disgusting and not merely unpleasant way of talking about, but something that you are led to when you make the Holocaust the touchstone.
We feel as if we're doing something by raising, as they say, Holocaust consciousness, but not about those who are today disadvantaged and poor and hungry and sick and ill, but about 6 million people who are long dead. This kind of morality I don't buy. It's too cheap. There's something rather strange, one must admit. Usually when we go through a terrible trauma, the natural instinctive way is to forget it, not to keep it alive. If you keep it alive, it begs the question, why?
Some Jews, I underline the word some, now seem almost proud of it, and wear the victimization of Jewry and the Holocaust almost as a badge of honor. This, of course, is related to changes in attitudes toward being a victim.
The whole discussion about pro-choice abortions in the United States is carried out in the lingua franca of the Holocaust. It's a tough competition to beat. American blacks are trying with slavery, but what you have about slavery is folk tales and, Hollywood movies. But you cannot put a slave in front of a camera today to relate his story.
I'm looking for mitzvot.
Hello. May I say you should go on the project? I shall not tell about you and your family. All right. They're my kind of people. Bright, sensitive, genius. So, it's time to step through the door. You know which one to choose, don't you? Oh, and remember, I like you.
Something had happened in terms of the history of mankind and the human condition that needed to be exposed, learned about, that the perpetrators of which had to be brought before the bar of justice, or civilization could never, in a sense, heal itself. That's the vision, and that's the message, the guiding principle for the Wiesenthal Center.
It's all right for you. You're not Jewish. I am. Calm down. Even if you're right, Goethe, there are millions of true Germans like me who'll never let this happen. Darling, please don't worry. Please don't worry. Please don't worry.
When the deportations began, this young couple committed suicide.
They were put in another chamber. The shower door was closed, and you would have people who would drop pellets.
The issue is whether the facts are right or wrong.
Which facts?
Well, the facts regarding whether or not the Nazi Holocaust has been used as an ideological weapon to bludgeon critics of Israel and later American critics of American Jewry into silence, and secondly, whether or not the Nazi Holocaust has in recent years simply become an extortion racket.
Before Evelyn begins, I'd like to wish everybody Gemar Chatima Tova on behalf of the World Jewish Congress and tell you that this is like the B team speaking first.
We have come to a point in which we have established in 52 countries around the world commissions on the Holocaust. This is very much the agenda of the World Jewish Congress today. It is important that the suffering of each victim should be reported and should be in our hearts.
By the way, it's very interesting linguistically, because at first they were called survivors, which is a very neutral term. You can be a survivor of anything, a survivor of an earthquake, a survivor of a car accident. There's nothing unique about the term. Then they were made into martyrs, but not all were martyrs, because at first only those who fought with weapon in hand were martyrs. But then they became holy, kedoshim. This is literally translated, holy people. In other words, superior to you and me.
This is the last chance we have. Survivors are dying. I don't want them to die thinking that their words will not be heard.
But then comes Primo Levi, for instance, and tells us very clearly in his books, the best did not survive. Because to survive the camps, you had what he called to live in the gray zone. And the gray zone wasn't a moral zone. You had to steal, you had to push your friend out of line, you had to lie. That's the only way you could survive. And that began a whole new discourse.
I was 14 and a half years old when they took me to the concentration camp.
Which camp?
I was 2 months in Auschwitz, and then they took me to 2 other camps where I was working. One was called Gelsenkirchen, and the other one was some of the ammunition factory where I worked.
This is my late father. The picture was taken after the war, and well, my father endured the Auschwitz death march, so you could imagine what he looked like at the end.
Did you know that people were being killed all around you?
They told me, but I'm telling you, I was too young to believe it. Sometimes I believed it, and I got very sick and angry, and sometimes I figured, oh no, that cannot be true. And I mean, they weren't criminals. I had 3 younger brothers and 3 younger sisters. And they were children, my parents loved them and they had a good life, so why should they be killed?
I was very close to my parents, but you knew never to ask them what happened to a family member.
I was so shocked still. I didn't believe that. I was sure my father is going to come home. He was 39 years old when they took him. And I just couldn't believe it that I'm the only one who survived it, such a large family.
Everyone was dead on my mother's side and my father's side. We never had any aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents. Everyone was exterminated. My father never said a word about it. To his dying day, literally nothing. I never was able to summon the courage to ask him. My mother never stopped talking about it. There was no topic that did not lead back to the war. Till the last week of her life, she was still denouncing that a handful of Holocaust gangsters and profiteers are going around the world sanctimoniously wrapping themselves in the mantle of needy Holocaust victims and then taking the money for their organizations. For everything she endured, she received $3,500. And there were people who were raking in billions in the name of her suffering.